Back to our focus in America. Let's now speak to John Matisonn, author and a political analyst. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Just looking back as we get your reaction, in 2016, Donald Trump, then a political outsider, essentially stunned the world when he claimed the US presidency, beating Hillary Clinton. In 2024, unlike 2026, he's not only won the Electoral College, but also the popular vote to beat Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's just get your sentiments on this.
Yes, and he's also taken the Senate. He's flipped it from Democratic control to Republican. And we're still waiting to see what happens with the House of Representatives. When the European leaders saying they're looking forward to working with him, they're looking forward to it like you look forward to a toothache. I was with somebody today who's been in some of these international meetings with him, and believe me, this is an earthquake. It's an enormously unsettling feeling for America's allies. And the earthquake is not that a Republican won, but that Donald Trump as a Republican won, because this means he now has total control of the Republican Party, and it will never go back to what the kind of party it was. He's changed the policies of the Republican Party radically, and he's won. And of course, what this has real implications for all over the world. First of all, in Ukraine, and then in Gaza. In Ukraine, there's a very good chance that he will change the policy of the Biden administration. You know, the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, immediately put out an effusive message of congratulations to Trump and looking forward to working with him. But Zelensky has got to be extremely nervous. There's a real chance that Trump will push for a settlement on terms that are much more favorable to Russia President Vladimir Putin than Biden or another American president would have ever agreed to. And on Gaza, I think what you can expect is that Trump will not put the same pressure on Netanyahu, on Israel, on human rights issues. I mean, Biden gave very, very strong support to Israel, despite the fact that of alleged human rights violations in Gaza and elsewhere. But he did put pressure, and he did sanction certain individuals in Israel for misbehavior. I don't think Trump will do that. And that could be a real game changer there too. So all over the world, there's real change in the air.
And I mean, I'm glad you went to that, because that was going to be my question then, in terms of what does a Trump win mean to the US-South Africa relationship. But I also want you to touch on the immigration issues, just on those countries that are bordering the United States.
Right. Well, on South Africa, my concern is not immediate. You know, I don't think Trump thinks a lot about South Africa. I don't think he's come in with a massive plan for how he wants to deal with South Africa. However, he goes by instinct. And if there comes a time when South Africa is working with the International Court of Justice on something against Israel, and Netanyahu calls Trump and says, look, these South Africans are giving me a really hard time, and I know they care a lot about AGOA. Why don't you threaten them on AGOA? I can quite see Trump saying, sure, why not? The South Africans are not being nice to America. They're not supporting America's policy. Why not do it? So that's the risk in the near term for South Africa. Not necessarily overnight, but certainly over time, as issues arise, he could take a very different view from Biden. Now, as to immigration, he has promised mass-scale deportations of immigrants. He's talked about 10, 12 million immigrants being deported. Now, I don't think he'll go that far, but we do know from last time he was in the White House, there were policies that involved a particular amount of cruelty, the separation of children from their parents and so on.
Let's go back to, focusing on the US per se, because we know that he did take a very nationalist view during his campaigning. What do you then make of just some of the comments that he made to his supporters a little earlier today when declaring early victory, saying that it was, time to put aside the divisions of the last 4 years and put America first? I mean, not convincing when you consider that, this is from someone who, in his last days in office, he became the first president to be impeached twice, the second time for inciting an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol after he lost the election to Joe Biden January 6th.
Well, that's right. America's never had a president like this. He's been impeached twice. All his court cases, by the way, most of them will go away, at least while he's president, because America has a policy that doesn't pursue prosecutions of a sitting president. However, in the next couple of weeks, one of the cases that was concluded where he was convicted as a felon, they're still to pass sentence. Now, the judge could still pass that sentence, and it could involve prison time. Now, I don't think that anything like that will be implemented, but those court cases will hang there for the next 4 years. He also will have a very different cabinet this time. He said repeatedly that he learned from his mistake by having attorneys general who were respected lawyers, and didn't obey his instructions when they thought he was acting unconstitutionally. He's made it clear that this time he wants an attorney general who does what he's told, even if he feels it goes against his professional conscience.
John, I want to just ask this question about, of course, we've talked about Trump as well as the Republican Party. What does this win mean for the Democrats? I mean, we've seen Kamala Harris just attain 224 of those, electoral college seats, with the Trump over exceeding 270. He's at 277, in fact, at this stage in time, well over the 270. And when we look at the Senate, Republicans have gained 3 seats, of course, meaning that the Democrats have lost 3 seats. But what can we say then about the way in which the Democrats campaigned during this time? Do you think they missed a couple of opportunities here in terms of just the narrative that they were describing to Americans and what they really needed to hear from Kamala Harris?
Well, I would put it slightly differently. First of all, it's not a surprise that a Republican would win when inflation is so high. The public view is that inflation has really hurt people. And we know in South Africa, people have been affected by inflation. I mean, I have spoken to people in America who really feel it when they go to the supermarket. So in a climate like this, in a normal election year, for the Democrats as the incumbent party to lose is not really that surprising. What was surprising, as I say, was that they lost to someone like Trump, who's such an outlier politically, or seemed so to them, such a challenge to the establishment. But as for the Democrats, the fact that Biden stayed in very late and he then got out and Kamala Harris came in late, she didn't go through a primary challenges. All of that, I think, made it more difficult. And the fact is, if you think back to Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, whatever you think of their policies, they were really outstanding presidential candidates. They were exceptionally strong speakers. They were quite visionary, especially Obama. Kamala Harris is talented, she's very competent and so on. And she ran, I think, a very good campaign. Yeah, but I wouldn't put her in the league of an Obama or a Clinton. Very few people are.